Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sam Battlefields. Thank you very much for joining me on this, my journey into the constraints-led approach for BJJ. I got a question from a friend of mine, Mr. Gino of Balanced Jiu-Jitsu in northern Brisbane. I know Gino through a few people, including Alex, who he has trained with, and I met him actually at a Grappling Industries competition and got him to take my photo of me receiving my gold medal, of which I am not worthy, mostly because it was a walkover and I was getting the photo as a joke. So if you ever see me with a gold medal, it's likely that it was a walkover. I like to think of it as they were too scared to go up against me. However, Gino got in touch with me. I actually noticed that Gino was doing, or was interested in the constraints-led approach and ecological dynamics, because he posted on Facebook when he went to the Kit Dale seminar and made a comment. He made a comment that Kit Dale was kind of one of the first in the eco space, and I got in touch with him at the time. I was very early on in the piece. This was, I think, last year, end of last year. I got in touch with him and said, I'd love to do a conversation. We didn't actually get around to it. I then, said I was going to be having a chat with a few other people if you had any questions, and he ended up sending this through to me. So we're going to go through this, but I thought it was a great question, so I asked him if I could use it for this channel, because I imagine that some people have the same or similar questions, particularly, even as I mentioned yesterday, with the class that Chris had, and I mentioned that I prefer my way, but again, I'm not about to change someone else's trajectory, because I am by no means, absolutely no means, an expert. So, Gino, really appreciate you, mate. Thank you very much for asking and giving me a bit of props and sort of confidence that I kind of have an idea what I'm doing. But all of this is part of the approach is test and measure. So I'm just going to see if I can make this a bit easier for everyone to look. No, just kidding. So he said, hey, what's your thoughts on getting specific with a theme, leg locks as opposed to playing the whole game? I've got a pretty good grip on formatting practices and working from the endpoint and stepping back from there. Trialing a themed focus versus playing the whole game hasn't really yielded definitive, this method works best, and I'm sure it's hard to see the results in the short term anyways. Just wanted to hear your thoughts. I'm kind of getting them touches in all areas every practice, but kind of sticking with a theme or really good starting point for a couple of weeks. He's exclusively ecological dynamics and constraints-led approach now across all ages and classes. The results, especially in the kids' classes, has been staggering. This is something, obviously, that I love to hear. The kids' classes, yeah, definitely. I mean, kids learn this way. It's actually really fun, because I've got a 3-year-old, and I can tell you right now that the kids, like, my ability to sort of communicate with my son is improving. I'm not saying I'm any good with it just yet, but it's something that they just work with. It works with them. So, but getting back to the question, so what's your thoughts on getting specific with a theme, leg locks as opposed to playing the whole game? And I've got a pretty good grip on formatting practices and working from the endpoint and stepping back from there. So, I like that. I like the thing about sort of, starting at, I think Greg does one where he shows doing essentially an armbar, and he's like, you've got everything locked up, and the person has to break the grip and then get back, and then, and then it goes back to the point where they're basically in mount and working from there. To be honest, I haven't been running that as a format for quite a long time. Not that I don't see benefit to it. I just haven't. I just feel like this, very scientific here, Mr. Fields. What I've noticed through the evolution of practice is that endpoint is very much again, it's a moment in time, right? So it's this very, very small moment, and I mentioned it a couple of weeks back where I was like, if you've done everything right, if you've done everything you need to do in the concept of getting connection to establishing control of the main torso slash the hips, primarily the hips, because that's the power center, in order to then isolate a limb, then there's so many ways that you can hurt the person and create a submission that, like, working back from an armbar is giving like this, here's the direction you need to go. Whereas I've just been going, I've now got control of the upper arm and their torso. I can do whatever the hell I want with their arm. I can twist it that way, I can twist it that way, I can snap it that way. There's any amount of things that I can do once I get in these positions that are based on the concept of connection to control of that limb that you're connecting to then controlling of the torso or the main center mass, as Greg likes to put it, and then from there, once controlled the main center mass, isolating the top part of the limb. Fuck, that came up quick on me. But once you do that, then you have any number of sort of outcomes that are available to you. So I've kind of rabbited on a bit there, Gino, but I actually prefer this themed focus. But in saying that, and I've mentioned it here before, I do essentially what I've looked at is basically 20%, 20%, 60%, right? So the 60% is your, and these are general figures, guys, like, it's always evolving, throughout class it's always evolving, so, but I'll have a theme in mind, and we have a curriculum. We're reviewing that curriculum, and I'll be reviewing that curriculum soon, but we have a curriculum. I mentioned it before, there was a leg lock week that we made into leg lock fortnight, but we've got 3 weeks on open guard, 2 weeks on closed guard, 3 weeks on half, that kind of thing, where it is written out. It's something that the entire club works to, that our club works to, but it's not like you know, okay, we are going to do in leg lock week this, and this. It's just basically this week is this theme, and that will be the 60% of the class. Now, the way I structure class is basically 20%, so the warm-up is stand-up, right? Stand-up gets the heart pumping and gets most of the muscles moving, although I will say, Chris's class the other day, I was pretty wrecked, but I think one of the things with stand-up is it's not straight into grappling cardio, it's like a full body cardio, it's a different cardio, and it's a different activation, so I find that they're doing like a couple of stand-up games, which, you know, include a bit of grappling, but might just be, you know, it's a martial art, you know, it might just be the chaos of getting in and out with like a boxing thing, you know, boxing footwork stuff, so, you know, just touching the shoulder. Scott Seawright does a similar game. I'm sure he does it considerably better than I do, but the games that I play there would be, you know, you touch a shoulder. I've spoken about it before, the golden snitch. So if you get any kind of game over grappling thing where maybe you've got your arms around their torso, you've got their the back of their shoulder on your chest, or you've got the back completely, that's what I would consider like a game over. So I call that, you know, Quidditch, because it's the golden snitch. But, you know, you have a point system, so, you know, 2 points for the shoulder, full palm, not blocked, that kind of thing. I'm kind of going over it, but I'm going to get to the definitive yielded and why. And you're right, yes, results in the short term, but, so the secondary part of that, so the next 20%, in this case, so because we're doing, for the last few weeks, we were doing like a guard, and I would put leg locks in the guard sort of thing. So the next 20% would be like 20% stand up, 20% control, and control is mounts, side controls, back controls, right? So, and knee rides as well. So those is what I would work on. You know, it'd be, again, the 20% are just almost warm, like the first one is a warm-up game, and the second one, what I try and do is incorporate something from the previous curriculum topic. Now, what I mean by that is in the Make It Stick book, which is about you know, helping you remember things, there's a concept of interleaving and retrieval practice. Anyway, interleaving, and I could be getting this completely wrong, but what it says is essentially if you are able to retrieve or be in a position where you are required to retrieve knowledge that you've recently learnt, then you are more likely for it to be solidified down the track, right? So if now this is in relation to like from what I understand, Make It Stick. There's a lot of references to, you know, memory champions and that sort of thing, and this is part of how they do it. You know, creating memory palaces and this sort of thing. Don't worry, I'm not going into that. But interleaving caught my mind, or caught my mind's eye, because it's something that we can do if we break up. If we break up sort of the lesson into these three fighting components, so stand up to ground, so stand up to take down, control, and the guard. So those three areas. And what you can then do is bring stuff in from a couple of weeks ago. So for example, I'll be able to bring. So we did leg locks 2 weeks ago. So one of the things I did with the control in this particular thing was I started to work on, okay, how do I get a single ashi from certain control? So and without using that language, by just using language such as double enclosure of my thighs around both my thighs around one of their thighs. So using that language, it went from like someone saying in a knee ride, you know, being able to be pushed into a half guard, or for example, someone in mount. Yeah, okay, you can. The goal is to get double enclosure around a thigh, but if they know that they can't, that you're potentially going to go for that half guard, then that single ashi, if you get them off to the side a bit more, that single ashi is open to you, which allows you to execute that thing. So I'm bringing in something where they go, oh shit, you know, like there's an opportunity here to get my thighs around one of his thighs. But we don't have any girls at ours, but like if my idea is, okay, well I can't get that thigh, what about the other thigh? Bang, I can then go into that mode. And so and what I found, even my white belts, when they saw that, and you know, it's not necessarily that I definitely didn't tell them to do it, but it was something that I wanted to work on. I wanted to work on getting into that single leg ashi, because I want to get a ton more leg locks in my game, right? So if I want to get a ton more leg locks in my game, I want to test all of the avenues. And so I did it once. I got into single ashi from a mount escape, right? I got into the single leg ashi. Next thing I know, one of our white belts did the exact same thing, right? But that was off the basis of they were trying to get the half guard, they couldn't get it, and then they realised, oh, actually, he's maybe too committed on that leg. I can push the other side. Bang! I've got this opportunity for the single leg ashi. So that's one of the reasons. Interleaving is one of the reasons why I've set up my classes like this. So, and then when you get to the 60%, okay, now you can flesh out you don't need to do like a singular hit game, which is what tends to happen. Like with the warm up, maybe it's like, okay, we're going to do you know, shoulder touch, torso touch. All right, we'll do that for 10 seconds, get the blood pumping. All right, now we're going to do golden snitch. Right, and then by then you're already a bit warm and you're ready to start arm dragging, ducking under, etc., etc. Second game, you might get 2 or 3 goes at this, and you might add a little bit extra to it. But ultimately, the theme is the bulk of the lesson. Yeah. I hope I kind of answered the question. I'm not sure now that I'm sort of thinking about it here. I'm kind of getting them touches in in all areas of practice, but kind of sticking with the theme. So yes, I would say that. As I said, I'll be reviewing my curriculum, or our curriculum, very soon with Alex. Part of that is because there's a few changes, like you know, the language around open and closed guards. You know, we're looking at the seated supine. There's certain things that I've mentioned that have kind of muddied the water, but you know, there's when you start going down these tracks, you start realizing, yeah, actually the the language is its own. The language is its own thing, and you can actually start simplifying it if you don't have to have all these labels. I'm going the complete opposite direction, which I thought I would go later on in my journey. But Gino, I hope that's helped. I hope that's helped everyone else. If you want to get in touch with me and ask any questions, stick them in the thing below. You can also go to my Instagram account and ask me any questions there as well. So anyway, this is Sam Battlefields. I am answering a question from my friend Gino, and yeah, if you have any questions, like, comment, subscribe down the bottom. Look forward to hopefully speaking with you soon. Cheers, peace.